not too long ago, when you built something in Copilot Studio, first off, that was a chatbot, right? And now we build custom agents with that tool.
What I have a bit of a debate about is any kind of copilot is, you can't call it an agent because it is not an agent, it's a copilot.
It's failing not because AI is rubbish, but it's because human systems, organizations are not ready.
We might introduce code unnecessarily because it's easy to vibe code and create something that is based on code. It's vulnerability as a service, as far as I'm concerned, vibe coding.
The larger company is, the less they open for process bending to system. You are the one who needs to run around them.
Generative pages create a ton of code in the background. It's so easy for me to go in and just clickety-click and type in a prompt, and boom, I get a page that has code in the background, and then the dev is going to freak out because we don't know what's in there.
And today's number is 95, because 95% of enterprise AI pilots fail to deliver meaningful returns. That's not me saying it, that's MIT in their most recent report. And yes, real people are telling the same. One manager on Reddit said, executives overestimate AI capability and underestimates the work involved. Another added, we spent more time debugging the software than doing the project itself. So today's topic is simple. AI hype VC delivery reality. There are so many things in AI, specifically from Microsoft space. And I remember last time, Antti, you wanted to chime in. So that's the opportunity. How you define different AI components of our Microsoft stack?
Yeah, definitions are interesting. And I think the disclaimer here has to be that I don't think we can be 100% sure if we even know the definitions for certain, if we're correct on our assumption of what these definitions are. So in my opinion, if we think of the AI stack at Microsoft or in the Microsoft cloud, the way I put it is I kind of divide that into three different brackets. And this is because I primarily work in low code. The first one I think of is the one that you take off the shelf from a store. You go to a store, you go to a shelf and you take something off the shelf, a boxed product, commercial off the shelf. Microsoft 365 Copilot, the one that you can chat with for free or the one that you can buy a license for to do some more advanced stuff. Copilot. The second bracket that I have is not commercial off the shelf, so something we need to build, but we build with low code. So that's Microsoft Copilot Studio. We build our custom agents or perhaps our custom copilots, but Copilot Studio for building low-code agents. That's the second part. So that kind of sits in the middle because it bridges the world of M365 Copilot to low-code through extensibility. And then it also bridges the one kind of on the right side, which is AI Foundry, Azure AI Foundry, for custom pro dev built agents. So that's the third bracket. MCS, Microsoft Copilot Studio, kind of sits in the middle. I'm thinking M365 Copilot on the left, AI Foundry on the right, commercial off the shelf, low code, build it yourself, pro code AI Foundry, built by pro devs. And then you need to figure out how all of that works together, because all of those, you can use all of those things together.
So I definitely don't disagree with Antti in terms of where each of the tools sits. So you've got the out of the box, if we want to call them that, agents, and then you've got Copilot Studio, which is kind of you're more, I would say, if you have no code on one side and code first on the other, you would definitely have on the no code side the out of the box agents, which are very much geared towards business users. Then in the middle you would have Copilot Studio, and that's more for the makers, and you kind of type and configure kind of stuff. And then very much on the pro dev side, definitely you've got, I would still have Copilot Studio in the pro dev, to be honest, plus Azure AI Studio, plus Azure Foundry, all of that good stuff. And that's definitely geared towards developers. So you do have different tools in the stack aimed at different groups of users effectively. So I don't disagree on that. What I have a bit of a debate about is, for me, any kind of copilot is, you can't call it an agent because it is not an agent, it's a copilot. So for me, copilots they need a human. Fundamentally, they're all about augmenting the human. So they work well as someone's effectively virtual personal assistant, but the human tells the copilot what they want and takes whatever the copilot gives the human, and the human says what to do with it. So and it's all grounded in, tends to be anyway, in the Microsoft stack around our work and to a certain extent personal data if people are using it for personal reasons. So because it is a human augmentation thing, for me, copilots don't fall into the bracket of agents, because for me, an agent to be an agent, it's an expert system. So it works on behalf of a person or a team or or a group of people or a function, a business function. And it's a system with, it has its actions, it's got its triggers, it's got its knowledge, and it fundamentally doesn't need a human. It's a system in its own right doing things in the background. And potentially a type of agent can be an agent that makes sure agents don't misbehave. So for me, that is where we are going. We are going towards that. For me, the agentic AI, agentic world is all about agents, automation agents, effectively. Agent apps just in the background doing things, and you've got a little AI control system making sure that they don't misbehave. So for me, that's agents. So when someone puts copilots and agents or uses those terms at the same time, I understand why they would do that at the moment. But for me, I think there is a clear distinction between a copilot and an agent.
So if I'm using Word, and Word has a built-in copilot, and I type something to that, and that chat experience creates a beautiful text for me, is that a copilot or is that an agent?
So for me, you can have a copilot call an agent,
Okay.
and the agent does something, gives it to the copilot, and the copilot then presents it to you because it's the UI for AI.
So that's the
right?
UI. Got it.
Yeah, for me, that's where the differentiation is. It's not that copilots can't use agents, and potentially for people, that's why they're one and the same, right? Because you think, oh well, I'm using a copilot for Word, and it goes away and does things for me and comes back. You may have like a compliance or a legal agent in the background that takes your Word document, runs it through to make sure it's compliant, and gives the result back to Copilot. The Copilot goes, here you go. You've done your thing. There is a technical difference, I think.
So agent is human in the loop is not present. So that's fundamental. So if you need, so for example, in your example, Antti, where you use Word with Copilot, and you still need to have not just a single, you didn't click a button, you have the boom output. No, you need to interrogate, you need to come back and correct and do your human in the loop work. So if you engaged in the loop game, that's not an agent for me. Or maybe it's kind of not fully autonomous, because I don't know, if you would agree, agent and autonomous agents for me are the similar words and definitions. And Copilot is actually you have back and forth conversation with a chat. Instead of going to ChatGPT, you're just having conversation with Copilot.
I don't feel particularly passionately about, are we all using the right terms in the right way, I have to say. I think realistically over time, these things will just merge, because the people that use them are not gonna technically want to they won't think of a distinction between them, but they will all just be a little bit interchangeably used anyway. And I think we just need to be prepared that, I guess what I think we're all agreeing on is that at the moment we may all have our different definitions for the same things, but the things that we have are the things that we have fundamentally. It's just the way we talk about them is a little bit, it's not black or white, it's a bit gray.
Exactly. And where it gets ambiguous is if you read Microsoft's documentation and you look at terminology there. And this is why I wanted to ask you, what is the Copilot and what is an agent? Because not too long ago, some months ago, when you built something in Copilot Studio, first off, that was a chatbot, right? Then they rebranded Power Virtual Agent to Copilot Studio, and then we built custom copilots with that tool. And now we build custom agents with that tool. And today, when we build something with that tool, that custom agent that we build can have a human in the loop. So it can be a chat bot that we chat with, but it can also be an autonomous agent, kind of like a workflow that runs in the background where there isn't a human in the loop. And then to add to this mix, when we're using that Microsoft 365 Copilot and we're extending it, actually building those extensions are the declarative agents, also known as Copilot agents. So, gosh, what do we want to use here?
I think there is a practicality here, practical angle, why definition important. So autonomous agents, I think their future is bright, but not today. We were sold that we'll have agents which are going to replace humans and employees, and this is how we're going to impact our profit and loss. This is how it will move the needle. So that definition where you have autonomous agent, I think that thing is not happening at least yet. But when you have human in a loop, chatbot, that's definitely here.
Yeah.
So having that clear definition of both chatbots, we see agents or autonomous agents makes at least your plan more clear.
Exactly. And the challenge here is that today in the Microsoft ecosystem, when we're talking about chatbots, we refer to something that doesn't use generative AI. So we refer to something that's built in Teams with Copilot Studio in Teams that doesn't use Gen AI. So wow, we have so many different options. I wish, I've said this for a long time, bring back CRM, forget about D365 sales or customer service or Flicky, bring back CRM, bring back chatbots. Let's call them chatbots. It's so much simpler.
100%. Yeah. I keep calling CRM. I call even, I think on my business card, I have Microsoft CRM in brackets Dynamics 365. I want to, talking about the AI Foundry and everything, I want to connect all of it from development perspective. So at the end of the day, whatever tool you build, you're still having the ChatGPT experience at the back of it. OpenAI, Anthropic, doesn't matter. You still, all your messages, everything you build through any tool, it's still going as a string, as a text to LLM, large language model, and it returns back. So the difference is when you're going to Azure Foundry, you're talking to LLM as close as possible. You're talking directly. And when you're going through Copilot, you have a huge interim stack of prompts and magic going on from Microsoft. And if you want to have a direct conversation, you don't want to have intermediaries, you're going to AI Foundry. And if you want to have safety of your data to be hopefully protected, to have some safety in place, enforced, then you're going to Copilot. I was scratching my head, people saying, if you're going to build apps, if you can do vibe coding, why you need to have any Copilot agents and stuff? Fundamentally, when you talk directly to LLM, you might skip on non-functional requirements. This is your safety, security, all of that. And a lot of end users today might not aware what non-functional requirement is and how important is performance, how important is security. If you want to have a more or less advanced app without thinking through sophistication, you don't going directly to AI Foundry, you're going to Copilot or tools like Copilot. Sometimes you need intermediary, even though you think intermediary will increase your price, decrease your speed. Sometimes you want to have intermediary that translator who will do better job. And that's differentiation for me.
That's a very fantastic point, and that's also one thing that I keep saying. When you build something with Copilot Studio, you get the UI, you get the agent, but you also get the UI. Usually that UI is Microsoft Teams for something built in Copilot Studio. I'm generalizing, but a lot of times that is Microsoft Teams that you publish it there. You can publish it elsewhere as well, but you kind of get the UI. That's my point. When you build something in Azure AI Foundry, you don't have that UI. You need to figure out the UI to which you will place that agent or chatbot to. You can use it in Azure AI Foundry, but that's not where your end users are going to use it. So even though it's fairly simple, you don't need to understand any code, not at all, to fire up an LLM in Azure AI Foundry, tweak it a little bit, and have that and run with it. But you're not going to be able to make it public to your organization without understanding how to actually create a front for it. So you need to understand at least some technical bits and pieces there, and those non-functional requirements, non-functional stuff, exactly like you said.
Do you want guys to dispel some myths around the AI? Because what we want to share with our listeners, two things we're going to give you today: a couple of myths displaced, and maybe a couple of cases we've seen personally in our life where AI literally working. Because we are recording this during the time when the stock exchange collapsed, or we've seen there is a lot of skepticism now about AI future, especially after GPT-5. It was kind of underwhelming. So let's talk about some myths and give back some good news to people, because there are some use cases where it actually works. So what do you think about myth number one, that AI can replace employees? Let's talk next 2 years. I heard some companies were literally firing. There was a very famous case. So they fired all employees I think in the call center, and then they had to rehire them in a couple of months.
I think it can, but it's not that simple. So what I mean by that is we've already seen to a certain extent technology generally replacing certain tasks, right? And AI specifically has done good things with things like data entry, data processing to a certain extent. Customer service chatbots is a big one. Basic accounting as well, kind of bookkeeping to a certain extent, inventory, logistics, content generation, obviously. We've all gone crazy generating images and videos and things with AI. I love it. But actually I think it's such a generalization to say AI will replace employees, because we're not really, an organization is a group of people doing things together. So if you take the people out of it, it's not really an organization. It's not a company anymore. It's a system. right? If the humans are not there, what is it? So I don't think at the moment anyway, AI can't replace things like our emotional intelligence and our kind of human judgment. We see AI doing some really weird things at the moment. We're like, creative thinking. It's not great at creative thinking yet and kind of innovation, although it helps us obviously use our creative thinking and innovate. Obviously, complex decision making is a problem at the moment. It can't quite do it yet. I mean, can AI do relationship building? Can AI do leadership? Can it do ethics?
People will claim, if we're going to replace people, why you need all of that? You don't need a relationship, you don't need leadership, because there is no one to lead.
I don't think we as humans will allow anything to replace us fully, because that is, counterintuitive. I think a better question might be, how will it reshape the role that we play in organizations? How will AI change who we are at work? I think that's a more interesting question.
I'll really like to your angle that instead of providing answer to that myth, we should probably provide a better question. And the question, what's the role of human in the organization?
Now
And
that AI is here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
because if you use people as a part of machinery in a manufacturing, what humans do is just click a button. That's probably replaceable. But if you use human to whole potential, where people trying to find with new ideas and do creative thinking, whatever, yeah, AI might not be as applicable, at least today. And that's the question, how you use your employees.
I think that to the question of, is AI replacing people in the short term? My short answer is no. In the short term, it will not, at least not in the stack that I work in that low code stack, even in that pro code stack. From what I've seen in the past year, primarily working around AI things, no, we're not there yet. It's not replacing anything in the short term. But I do want to give some food for thought. The longer answers here. The MIT report that came out that said 95% of generative AI pilots at companies are failing caused a slight stock market crash. So that's a sign that maybe those Gen AI pilots, maybe they're not a silver bullet. And then another food for thought is, Satya last December said that software as a service is going to be dead in the future. But now Charles Lamanna said that AI business agents will kill software as a service by 2030. So from a Microsoft partner point of view, I'm not that worried about the lost jobs. I'm more worried of our business transformation and how we're going to be able to transform our business, and partners in general are going to transform their business to reflect these statements. And the juxtaposition here is that the MIT study says 95% fail, and then Charles is saying software as a service is dead by 2030. We're going to need humans to go through all of this stuff. So sorry, I don't believe in job cuts because of AI, at least through the Microsoft Cloud AI stack just yet.
That's a very long and brilliant way of getting to the point that actually I went into that MIT report, and what they said, it's failing not because AI is rubbish, but it's because human systems, organizations are not ready. Somebody might say that humans are bottleneck, but okay, let's assume that. But it's still bottleneck, even in your terminology, in your words, you still cannot get around that. You need to win human hearts, and it means you need to find an angle where both systems work. By 2030, I think it's optimistic if everything else comes up, stacks up correctly. And I'm curious if 2030 going to be moved to 2035 or 2040. Or maybe the end of my career.
I think the potential is there, and it's doable. The timelines that Microsoft is looking at, Gartner also has some interesting AI predictions, right? The timeline is doable practically that they are looking at, but in reality, I think organizations can be very slow to move, and we can be very slow to adapt. I think we're all as technology is getting faster, the rate of innovation is faster, and more new things are coming our way. We're all having to learn quicker to a certain extent, but we have capability limits, right? We as people are not able to keep up at an individual level, just the things that are being created by groups of people. And there is the practicalities of it that will slow it down as well. So we spoke about all of the different tools we've got, and we said you can use all of them across the board. You can use the low code, no code. You can use the interim Copilot Studio customization side, or you can go full on Azure AI Foundry and all of that stuff. That's great, but who maintains that? What do you do with it? How do you keep it up to date with all of the new models that are coming out all the time? And how long will you have it for before you have to replace it with something else new and shiny? So all of that needs planning. We can't just play with AI and forget about the governance and think about it another day, because fundamentally what we're doing is introducing systems to processes and to people, and that has to be managed. And we are only as quick as the slowest person in our team, basically. And a system, all of this AI can sit there but if humans are not using it and if humans are not getting a benefit from it, fundamentally, it's all about licensing. Humans using these things is where the money is made. So if you take the humans out of it, if you have an agent or multiple agents and you have an organization where there's more agents maybe than employees, if no human is to use an agent, does it still need to be licensed? What are we licensing in the future? That's what I would like to know. But this is the thing, these things will all change, and how we deal with it will change. And I think in reality, the rate of change is slower than the predictions. I think the predictions are saying in an ideal world, technically, is this possible? Yes, it is, but this is not an ideal world.
I think if Microsoft's business planning is listening to this, you just gave them an idea of an AI process license.
If agents are so brilliant, why companies like Microsoft wouldn't just run businesses by just initiating a new agent? Why you need to have a company who paying you licenses if you can do it bypassing humans who own companies and just run the agents? But we're really talking about maybe too far away into future. So what I'm going to say on AI is this. We're going to share cases. We didn't manage to touch base on cases, so that's why you need to follow and subscribe and see our next episodes. We're going to give a couple of use cases. We've seen I'm sure everyone has its own experience where use cases, some AI use case applications work well, and some AI applications were very promising but failed. So and all of us have slightly different experiences, and I'm sure the listeners would be keen to learn. But let's run our more traditional topic just to cover for people who came for more traditional, not AI-related stuff. So how Wheel of Fortune works, it will choose a topic for us, and then we'll choose somebody who will provide the summary of that topic. So let's see. Okay, so the first one is configuration customization, configure code. It's slightly relevant to what we've discussed, and the summary will be provided by Antti. Okay, so configuration VC customization. We can tie back to AI and Copilot, because Copilot at the end of the day is still our old customization is chatbot framework. Rich, if you want to start.
Yeah, configure versus code, choose your pain. Generally best practice, right? Well, let's start there.
Yeah.
Generally best practice is that you shouldn't introduce custom code unless you can't configure, right? Because you don't want to literally recreate the wheel. If there is a way to configure something out of the box to do what you needed to do, why would you create the, for lack of a better word, burden of creating the code, maintaining the code, all of that side of it, and the skills that are needed in house to maintain it as well. So, because it's all nice and well if you're a Microsoft client and you've got a partner that comes in and customizes your system, but then who maintains that after they're gone? You need skills in house for both configuration and code, but that's something to consider as well. The answer is it depends. You should try to avoid custom code if you can. If you don't need it, why is it there? But at the same time, if you can't do it out of the box and you need to customize the system, you use code to customize the system. I think the important thing for me is if you look at this as over the years, that the trajectory of the stack has gone from needing a lot more code to a lot less code to get the end result that a business needs in order to use a system or systems. So historically, we've had a lot more code in solutions than we do now, because the platform has evolved to have a lot more out of the box or low code tools that allow you to do what you would have to achieve with code previously. This will probably continue, but we will have custom code doing cooler things. So the things that are a bit simpler to achieve are being incorporated into the out-of-the-box solutions, but things that are still very complex or do not have an overall benefit to everyone, because fundamentally that is what it comes down to when it's out of the box. It's will this benefit the majority of customers or not? Because otherwise there's no value in implementing it in the out-of-the-box and for Microsoft in turn to maintain it. There is that element of looking at, well, from a historical perspective, we are going to be having more complex code, less of it, but potentially a lot more complex. But at the same time, over time, the elements that we are coding right now will eventually be replaced by out-of-the-box things. And I think the important thing to remember, whether you're doing configuration or custom code, are to always look back and look at what you have configured and what you have coded. Are there things that you have coded that can now be configuration? But equally, for the configuration part, what the important thing to remember is that you should only configure it if you absolutely have to as well. because if you can keep it as out of the box as possible, your upgrades are a lot more straightforward. Same applies to code. But if you have configured it to the end of its life because you want it to replicate a process that really should be improved, improve your processes and see if your processes can match the system. If they can't, okay, configure it or code. But I think for me, it's important before you even do the configuring or coding to actually look at why are you trying to configure or why are you trying to customize, regardless of what the customization will actually be. So I think we need to remember that configuration is also customization and has its own little bugbears.
How vibe coding do you think would change impact that approach?
So we might introduce code unnecessarily because it's easy to vibe code and create something that is based on code. But in reality, the question really is, but do you need to code it? Because even in the platform right now, you can achieve things with code that you can also achieve by configuration. You don't need to code it because you can configure it. But sometimes if you don't know you can configure it, you might go and code it. So it's vulnerability as a service, as far as I'm concerned, vibe coding.
Like you said, it's infinite technical debt. I remember I published on LinkedIn a post that potentially vibe code, it might introduce throwaway code, one-time code. How do you call those caps? Disposable caps. Published, and I didn't expect to have any reaction. Some people even actually debated if it was the good idea, because sometimes you have some piece of functions which need to be used just once for a single user and in a remote corner of the company. And what if you just build that and your intention, you're not going to fix it at any point of time, you're just going to run another prompt, building another feature. So that vibe code might introduce code through the back door, while it's not really pro code in this case. It's kind of advanced customizations.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you've just reminded me of the opposite of that, though, as well. I once had one of the build teams that came to me and said, we are doing a sprint where we're going to do the no regrets build. And I was like, what the hell is the no regrets build? I was like, I've not heard this before. What are you guys talking about? And they said, oh, it's all the things that we need to build, and we definitely need them. No regrets. And I was like, what are the other sprints?
Exactly.
Do you know what's the difference? And they were like, no, but it's other stuff that will need to be. But this would definitely need to do this. And it was basically customizations, right? It was code. It was the key core things that needed to exist. The other things could potentially be up for debate, but these were the no regrets things. So you just reminded me of that. When you said the disposable bit of code, there's also the code you need regardless.
I like this. Build the things you actually need, not the ones that are prioritized that actually are not
the
always
no regrets,
needed.
The no regrets stuff. Yeah. The things definitely need to be there. And there was a bit of a scope question, right, as you might expect. But there were things that they knew needed to get done, and there were things where the approach or the specifics were and not as clear. So we're like, this is the no regrets build.
Yeah, the old school black and white have only used code when out of the box, like basic customizations aren't enough. I kind of want to say it still sticks. That mantra still sticks, but AI has made it a lot more difficult because, like already you said, what AI injects into the mix is potential regular customizations that we might not need because of AI. Now, I always said that only use code when you absolutely need it, unless you're working with calculated columns, then always use JavaScript. But that's a dynamics joke. Some people will get it, some people won't. First, customize out of the box, consultant customizations, then build code, use your C#, JavaScript, whatever, Python, whatever you need, and add code if you really need it, but then be wary of AI. That AI will be able to do things in the future and already that you might have needed code or customizations for before. And those AI features are now kind of rolling to the platform, to our apps, whether they're first-party apps, and also to the platform level. Like if someone's wondering what the heck is he talking about? Simple example could be something like you have an out-of-the-box Dynamics Copilot that you can use to sum two columns, sum two fields together. You used to need logic to do that. Now you can just ask that agent or Copilot to do that calculation or to do an analysis. And you might have customized that or coded that functionality. And now with AI rolling to the platform, that makes your customizations or your code unnecessary. No, you have to deprecate that. We have an extra dimension in this big picture. So it's not that simple and straightforward anymore that used to be. It wasn't straightforward back then either, but for the sake of argument, let's say it was, that always first customize and then do code. So
I think I want to pick up, Areti, your point. So configuration DC code, I will say, do change management, do process change first. But we rarely, as technologists, have that luxury. And my working with small, medium-sized and enterprise customers, I've learned the larger company is, the less they open for process bending to system. While if you read any book, they say you bend your process to system rather than system to your process. So your customization, configuration, and development usually comes from the fact that no one wants to bend to you. They think you are the one who needs to run around them. So if you need to run around them and you cannot change your process, I fully agree, you need to do customizations. And only when you exhaust that customization, you go to developers. And let's assume you're a manager and you're in a hard place where you kind of need to navigate all of that. And you listen to our advice. You assign somebody who cannot build code, literally. So in this case, you manage that scope and scope creep or feature creep, and that person just building your low-code solution. And when this person comes to you and say, hey, I cannot build that stuff, Automate is not capable, then you call to developers. So this as a manager, you can do first line of defense, push back, second line of defense, assign somebody who has no coding skills, and only then when two of those exhausted, you go to developer. So developer might sound like he will sit on his hands now. So developer has to fix all vibe coded stuff going on around the world, and they can build really advanced features like product-based features, maybe a different altogether story.
So do you build a system for the process or a process for the system? Be realistic and down to earth with your requirements. Consider those. Don't just start building without actually proper functional as well as non-functional requirements. And still the truth is, those of us that do not code are, those functional consultants. We do try to solve those things low code. And then if we need a dev, we go to a dev. The challenge in today's world is that we do have that vibe coding aspect. So things like generative pages, which create, even though in preview, create a ton of code in the background. It's so easy for me to go in and just clickety click and type in a prompt and boom, I get a page that has code in the background, and then the dev is going to freak out because we don't know what's in there. It's generated something. And then kind of through these realities, do we then customize or do we use code? You have to consider the amount of technical debt that you're creating, whether you're doing customizations that are no code customizations or whether you're using pro code to extend the system. So you need to consider your future technical debt that you're about to have. And through that final words of thought, there's no single right or wrong. It's both options. All options we've discussed are valid. Consider those. You might make wrong decisions. That's what we do sometime. But at least if you put some thought to it, it's probably the best that you have with the resources and information at your hand at that time. So whether you customize, whether you use pro code, both can work.